For example, she has a PhD, studies at Wits University, specializing in strategy and leadership, and which she's still pursuing on a part-time basis. Master's degree in administration at UNAM, degree in administration again at UNAM, and a postgraduate diploma in management consultancy from the UK, and many more academic achievements, which I don't want to mention right now. She is the Deputy Executive Director at the Ministry of Finance and Public Enterprises since 2017. And then I have with me Mr. Frans Kalenga, who is the Head of Sustainable Energies at the National Petroleum Corporation of Namibia, NAMCOR, and he's also the Technical Advisor on Green Hydrogen to the Minister of Mines and Energy of Namibia, the Honorable Tom Alwendo. Mr. Kalenga boasts an extensive background in the petroleum industry, having collaborated with major companies such as Total, Shell, Puma, Engen, and Sasol, and his expertise and influence actively shape the future of sustainable energy, both in Namibia and around the globe. He holds a Master of Science in Petroleum Reservoir Engineering from the University of Aberdeen in Scotland, and has a Bachelor of Science in the Electrical Engineering from Dan State University, Technical University in Russia. And he's currently pursuing an MBA. So with all that rich accolades that my panelists have tonight, we want to delve into the topic of governance of natural resources, and we want to focus on the context of triple bottom line accountability, and that's the triple P, if you know, is the profit, the people, and the planet. And for part one, which it is today, we're going to have a focus on people, especially. And just to start you off, the Namibia economy is underpinned by its rich mining sector. And now with the discovery of the oil deposits and obviously the pilot projects on green hydrogen, it seems that there is a positive outlook for the economy. Now, triple bottom line accountability assumes achieving a balance between the needs of the organizational prosperity, which is the profit that we mentioned, the human needs, which is people, what we're going to talk about, and the needs of the environment. So people, planet, and profit triad. And today we just want to go into people. And my very first question, I think I should ask Mr. Asap, just because you're sitting next to me, who do natural resources actually belong to? And I know this question has been going around a lot, so we really need to answer this question. And I know that hydrogen is not our focal point today. We're really talking about other minerals, oil and gas, and so on. But the latest developments warrant a debate in the general sphere of these natural resources. And then it beckons the question, how does one balance the consideration that natural resources are state assets with the recent offer by Hyphen Hydrogen Energies to sell a 24% stake to the Namibian government for the development of the country's first large green hydrogen project, for example. So that in the context of all natural resources.
Perfect. Thank you, Vancia, and my fellow colleagues. And good evening to the viewers that have tuned in. Thank you for your valuable time. I think your question fundamentally is, Vancia, to whom does the natural resources in Namibia belong? I think the answer, the sweet and short of that answer is, belongs to the people of Namibia. That's the sweet and the short. If you look at our constitution, it says it vests in the state, but who is the state? We go to the polls every 5 years and we elect a government. And that government serves as a representative of the people. So the natural resources in Namibia belongs to no other than me and you, the ordinary man in the street, and that's what we need to cherish. On your question as to how does it happen that Hyphen now wants to offer the Namibian government 24% stake in this project, and Frans can probably come in here, he's more intricately involved in it. But it's not necessarily the natural resource that Hyphen is offering to the Namibian government. So the wind, the radiation, the seawater, etc., that they want to harvest belongs to the Namibian citizen. But what they are offering, and that is my understanding, is that when they set up the infrastructure to harvest this natural resource, they want to give government a 24% stake in the infrastructure. So it's basically government becomes part of the project in terms of the infrastructure, but the resource do belong to the Namibian people. I think it's important to have that clarity.
And I think you need to maybe expand on that clarity, but we will still have that conversation about the profit, what goes to government. I think that question will come in part 2 or 3 of this series, but please go ahead and talk to us about that.
Thank you, Vinja, and good evening to my fellow panelists and our viewers online. Very interesting question, and I'm glad I was not the first one to answer it.
Yeah.
But ED have done a good job by saying, indeed, it belongs to the people. But in my response, I would say that it belongs to the Namibian government.
Right.
And that is a representative of the people. And this is, we all know that is in line with the international law concept in terms of sovereignty of natural resources. But however, we need to be cognizant that government is entitled to grant to private sector portions or utilizes these natural resources to create employment or opportunity to its people. And the example of hyphen that you have mentioned, agreement, is one of that of those examples that provides a balance between the need of the state to seek investors that are prepared to invest significant capital, and on the feasibility and ultimate implementation of that project or capital. But for the Namibian government to be able to participate in the economics of the project, subject to commercially sound terms, there's where now the 24% comes in, as ED has already alluded to.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think that sort of rests that issue, at least gives an overview of what it is that people can know about that 24%. I know that's been a big debate. And I really now want to go into that topic of people. And it's a good thing you said invest in the people, but also the government is the custodian of natural resources. And as the custodian, the governance of natural resources is obviously a primordial concern for the state, as prescribed in Article 100 of the Constitution, particularly for the benefit of the people. So, Memeshihomeni, how can the state ensure that natural resources benefit the people? What are the policy instruments that we have put in place to ensure that we benefit the people of Namibia, who are the owners of these natural resources?
Thank you, and good evening to the viewers and to fellow panelists. I think that question, when it comes to natural resources, we'll have to ask especially the Ministry of Mines and Energy. But first, I want to talk about issues of corporate governance when we talk about triple bottom line. We talk about people, planet, and profit. And the triple bottom line is really a concept around sustainability.
Yeah.
And when we talk about corporate governance, we are actually talking about 2 issues. It's ethical leadership and corporate citizenship.
Yeah.
Now, we are saying that because, and I want to applaud the Institute of Corporate Governance for hanging on to this, because it's a very important topic in terms of corporate governance.
Yeah.
And corporate governance is the center of governing a nation.
Yeah.
Now, when we talk about natural resources, in Article 100 of the Namibian Constitution talk about that the resources below and above the service belong to the state. And there is a difference between the state and government. So in the legal definition. So you would think that there would be also, the government has to come up with policies that will ensure people participate, and not necessarily only government participate. And when we talk about people, we are not talking about only government. So we are talking about how do Namibian people benefit from the natural resources. Now, Namibia is endowed with rich mineral resources.
Yeah.
If you count, we are probably the best, second in the top 5 in diamond, in the top 5 in uranium. We have copper.
Yeah.
And now we're going to have oil and and green hydrogen.
Yeah.
What we don't want to do is actually to repeat the mistake we have done, especially in the mining industry, where there has not been a proactive policy intervention in terms of beneficiation of the Namibian people. So you will find out that in many of the mines, for example, there is no compulsory participation of the Namibian people. If you go to other countries, you find that they have a definite strategy in terms of when you come there, what are the people going to benefit? How will they benefit? So what you usually look at, the policy must define the value chain and says in terms of the value chain, if you are in the mining sector, if you are in the oil industry, if you are in the fishing sector, so if you come, the people would benefit in the value chain process. This value chain must either be reserved for Namibians, and where you have maybe high tech or high skills that are required, there has to be a process where a certain percentage of threshold is reserved for the Namibians. So that people can benefit directly. The people cannot wait for government to get an income and feed them. So they should participate because we have entrepreneurs in Namibia. We have to make sure that people are involved in businesses and they are making profit, because that's where the tax from the state come from. If it's only the state that is going to benefit and the people have to wait for taxes so that they can benefit, then you have a skewed economy, and we still have a skewed economy. So therefore, I think, I think Mr. Asep can come in. I'm very grateful, and I applaud our colleagues and the entire government for coming up with a local content policy.
Yeah.
And of course, at the moment, the local content policy, and he's the expert on it, is primarily looking at oil and gas. I think we need to do more. Yeah. We need to look at all the natural resources. For many countries, for every natural resources and for every major industry, there's a local content policy. Yeah. That's how people can benefit. And I think we are looking forward to present this policy, and I think he can explain it further to the Namibian people and to see how can we kickstart that process. Yeah. And I think the Ministry of Mines and Energy also have a beneficiation policy. And for us from the public enterprises, we are also looking at a process on how we unbundle a value chain within public enterprises, because public enterprises play a key role in the economy. So they occupy the major economic activities. So people also have to participate there. Although they are owned by the state, we want to unbundle and also map out what are the value chain that local Namibians can participate.
And that's a good thing, because I can tell from what you're saying that there's the aspect of participation, but there's also the aspect, and we won't touch on it right now, but later on being a good, corporate citizen. And we will definitely have to come to that, because that's a different aspect. We're talking about participation, and that really, takes us to a place of employment, or rather unemployment and inequality, which remains high in Namibia. And we know that we are probably one of the most unequal nations in the world. And we really have to speak about that participation aspect. And then that deals with unemployment and so forth. And then later on, I would like us to touch on what she's spoken about. So that local content policy, maybe the two of you can just weigh in on that.
Thank you, Vincia. I think to build upon what Meshwamini has mentioned is, indeed, we need bespoke legislation to make sure that the people are accommodated and can participate. Yeah. But in order for us to do that, first you need to identify the cause, effect, and then recommendation. So speaking from experience, being in the oil and gas industry, being now in the sustainable energies, our number one issue is, I would say, is that we have legislation that no longer speaks to the current needs of situations. Yeah. So, and this legislation, we don't have, I'm not shifting blame, but we are not pragmatic enough to take decisions that, yes, it no longer serves us. Can we change it? That is one issue. The other issue is, I don't know, is it because we had obtained independence last, it's a young country recently, yeah. But we feel, we have that self-doubt. We feel as if we are not good enough to do these things. That's why when investors come, we always feel like they are doing us a favor, but not actually reality to say that actually we have the upper hand in these negotiations because the resource is ours.
Belongs to us.
And if we don't have the capacity, what decisions are we making in order to make sure that we keep to the same level with the investors so that we sit across? So these two issues are the ones that needs to be tackled.
Yeah.
But I'm glad with for the Ministry of Mines and Energy as a country to come up with a local content policy, because how can you have natural resources but you don't have a plan how it should benefit your own people? So that local content really seeks to look at how do we create employment, how do we upscale, how do we finance, and how do we keep ourselves with technologies, because we are moving in a world that is really moving. And there were debates during the conference that instead of it being a policy, let it be a law, so that whoever is coming knows that this is the law. And in conclusion, in terms of unemployment that you have asked, I think the unemployment issue is the state bureaucracy. In my own right, is the state bureaucracy of doing things. And we have too many red tape with a government system that limits the speed at which projects can be implemented or the people can be absorbed. Now, being in the oil and gas industry and also in the construction industry and now in the sustainable industry, I've seen the manner in which government handled the green hydrogen. If we can do more like that with all other sectors, I think the near future's unemployment will begin to drop because we are serious. It was aggressive. And that is the same energy that we need to do. Now, I can also confidently say that money is readily available to be invested. Opportunities are there. But the red tapes is the way of hindrance of these opportunities for people to be able to start businesses, to employ others, or for projects to run for people to be employed. So those bureaucracies, those issues of outdated laws, they need to be fixed. And fixing that comes to what is corporate governance. How do you govern? How do you govern? Are you a thought leader? Are you doing these decisions because it benefits the country or it's within yours? Are you keeping the status quo? Who is it serving? Is it you or the nation? So I think Edie can elaborate more also on the local content policy.
And before you come in on that, you mentioned that policy should be made into legislation, but there is a hierarchy of laws, and I think as a lawyer you understand that policy is law. It's just called subordinate or secondary law, so it does have effect in law, and it should be viewed as that. It's not less effective when it's not the legislation, the act of parliament itself. So maybe that is something that people should know. And maybe what we need to do then is to make sure that our acts of parliament are not outdated, number one, and that they're effective in substantiating and carrying subordinate laws. But if you can just speak to us about those outdated laws, antiquated laws, and so many of them in Namibia, but really just focusing on natural resources. And I like what Mr. Shihwameni said, that it shouldn't just be an oil and gas conversation, it shouldn't be a lithium conversation, and it should not be just a hydrogen conversation. It should be all the areas of natural resources. And I know that I have a comment from the floor, or rather from the viewers, that certain mining licenses actually condition the issuing of those licenses on a condition that the local community in proximity of the mining area should be benefit. So maybe that's there, but let's speak about those antiquated laws.
So you are right. If you do a survey of the laws that we administer at the Ministry of Mines and Energy, amongst others the Minerals Act and the Petroleum Act, these are indeed very old laws, which was And again, I think we must applaud government. Immediately after independence, government, in an attempt, in an effort to make sure that the resources remains invested with the people, government passed these laws. Yeah. But I think there was a time lapse until now that we have not really spent enough time to, amend these laws, repeal them, to speak to the contemporary issues. And that's where we are now. We are looking, the debate has been coming along, but we are accelerating that process of amending our current laws that we administer. But it's not where it ends. I mean, as you rightly saying, the question is, how quickly can we develop policies under those laws that speaks to the governance of our natural resources and still give effect to maintaining ownership in the people? Because if you critically analyze, unless the people, and especially the most vulnerable, benefit, can we really say that the natural resource belongs to the people? We can't. It's a fallacy. So what we are saying at the ministry is, and I'll touch on the local content policy a little bit now. What we are saying, or what we are intending to do at the ministry, and perhaps before I go there, at this point in time, we have the local beneficiation strategy at the ministry, which is a strategy to ensure that local Namibians benefit from mining activities, for example. And this is well known in the mining industry. The second national policy that we have is the growth at home strategy. So, and again, growth at home, implying that if we exploit the natural resources, that Namibians must be first in line to be employed. Because if you employ one Namibian, I can guarantee you probably feeding a household. And that's what the multiplier effect that we need to look at. So in terms of the local content policy, for example, and we had a workshop about 3 or 4 weeks ago. France was the able moderator at that workshop, where we basically, the document that we came up with, we invited various stakeholders to this conference so that we could rip that policy apart and get public input, public participation, so that there's common and shared ownership of this policy and not just something that is being dumped upon the Namibian nation. And what we intend to do as a ministry is now to go out to the regions, various regions, where we're still going to continue workshop this policy. And once we have gotten input from all the relevant stakeholders, and especially the elected representatives of the people, because that's most of the time the conduit or the voice for the people, we will then consolidate that and ultimately, develop and refine the policy so that Namibians benefit. And this is, as Mrs. Sigomeni said, this is now for the oil and gas sector. And there was a comment that France made that there was a sentiment that this policy must be developed into law. I think it's important that we probably take it one step at a time. Develop the policy, see the shortcomings, and after that, perhaps, exactly. So it's one step at a time in the right direction. And then that's where we are as a ministry. But Mrs. Shihomeni is right that when she says that we should take that model and take it into all the other sectors, natural resource sectors, because then we can say that Namibian participation results in Namibian ownership.
And was it because of that specific notion that the recent cabinet decision was made to prohibit the exportation of Namibia's critical minerals in raw form, and we're speaking lithium now, in a bid to create more local jobs and more local content in the light of triple P that we're talking about?
Again, I think there's a high commonality in that respect. Maybe I can just contextualize why the ministry decided to to plead with cabinet to pass this, or listen to our plea for a prohibition on these critical raw minerals. If you look at the energy transition that we are in now, the demand for those minerals are just intensifying by the day. And if we do not create policies, adequate policies, to protect the interests of the people, we are not going to, we're going to create a black hole business for Namibia. And maybe I can give you an example. In 1905, 1908, diamonds were discovered in Namibia, in Luderitz, Kolmanskop. The financial sector started evolving in Kolmanskop and Luderitz. Today it's a ghost town. We don't even have a cutting and polishing factory in Luderitz currently. And we should avoid that with our critical raw minerals. What we are saying to investors, we are not chasing you away. We are saying Namibia offers you a stable economy, stable political environment, a stable social environment. When you make an investment decision to come to Namibia for exploiting our natural resource, consider setting up plants here and do it in conjunction with Namibians so that you can create value, create jobs. We will be forced to amend our school curriculums, our tertiary institution curriculums to cater for those jobs that would be in need in the next 3 to 5 years. And that's where value addition comes. When we upskill the Namibian child to the extent where he or she can fend and provide for themselves.
And I think that's very critical, and I want to now shift on. Did you have a comment to make? Please go ahead. Yes, please go ahead.
I think
Madam first, maybe? Ladies
first. Although Adam was created first.
Oh, let's go.
These young people, they have smart ways of answering.
I'm telling you.
What I wanted to add to what the ED was saying is that, you see, I think the root cause is with our laws. Okay. Now, if you look at our economic structure, where Namibia is the most unequal nation in the world, and you look at the Mineral Act and the Petroleum Act, you think this country is a perfect nation. Yeah. Now you need to, and first of all, I want to applaud the ministry, and the whole entire leadership from the Ministry of Mines and Energy for this immediate actions to stop and to put a moratorium. It's really a brave, and we should be doing that in all other sectors where we need to correct the wrong. The thing is that how do you have a country that have mineral that has no value? Yeah. And that is at the heart of the policy, because at the beginning we're already supposed to set a price for our mineral, a value for our mineral. And that's why when people come here, because we are in our own policy, we have not set a value on our minerals. So when you come, you find an area of maybe 40,000 square hectares or 400 hectares. It has no value. Mm-hmm. Then the investor is coming and says, I'm going to use my technology to drill and explore. And if I find the resources, the deposit, mm-hmm. So the technology and the resources I'm going to use, they have a value, but the minerals and the land has no value. That's a flaw in the policy. So therefore, I think what we need to be started talking into Namibia, into policies about monetizing our resources. Yeah. So in other countries, for example, they will take the EPL as it is. It's just you have an EPL. You go to the New York Stock Exchange and you can list it there before any discovery is done. And the further discovery are done, so the stocks in that EPL is going up. So we should be looking at those innovative ways, because that already gives us a competitive advantage. Now, if investor come and the state has a zero equity, yeah. and if you look at commercial land in Namibia, every square meters has a value. But what is surprise is when it comes to our minerals or mining, You can find an area and it has no value and the state has zero equity. So we need to start balancing that and saying, and with no excuse to anybody, because these are the type of policies that are available globally. You can go to China. How many billions of investors are invested in the Chinese market? You can go to Angola. So we were in the benchmark. Exactly. Right. We were in Angola last year, for example, in terms of oil and gas. In 1996, the Angolan government set up, for example, a subsidiary of Sanangol in oil and in logistics, you know, oil and gas logistics, Sanangol, and they say Sonils, and they says anybody who's coming to invest in the oil and gas in Angola would have to pass through this state entity. It's a commercial public enterprise. So now Total Energy will come, BP will come, all the logistic in the whole country when it comes to oil and petroleum are controlled by this. So Angolans can able to participate. They have now 26 years of experience. And that sector of logistics was ring-fenced for 15 years just for Angolans to participate in that sector. It's now a leading sector and they are now participating in the entire value chain. These are the type of strategic policy that we need to put in place as soon as we can. Yes. Because from a corporate governance point of view, we cannot continue to say, like I had one expert talking, saying, no, with green hydrogen or with oil and gas, we should just be expecting the government to get royalties and to get income, and then the government will have enough money to give to the people. But what about the participation of the Namibian in the value chain? Yes. You know, what a percentage would be given to the local communities that are in those areas where the discoveries, whether of oil and gas is done, or the entrepreneurs that are in Namibia? How do we upskill them? How do we get them into those value chain? Yeah. And I think that we are just starting the conversation now. But all of us, especially, of course, from both the private sector sector must also come on board and says, because there is no company in the world that is created for itself. Companies are created to create wealth. Yeah. They are part of corporate citizenship. They work as part of the citizen. So therefore, we need to put it at the center and say, it's not about chasing away the investor. It's about we all, with both public and private, we need to act ethically, and we are part of governance. And that requires us to act in the interest of the society to create wealth for everyone. I'll allow you to speak, and then I want to come back to that, because I think we need to now speak about that corporate citizenship and how this part of the conversation, we've really been talking about participation. I think that's very important, because you don't want to just take, somebody to the water well and still feed them the water. You want to bring them and actually teach them to, get the water, and all to fish. And that's this conversation, the part of this conversation has been on that. And it's very important that people hear us, that we're not trying to get money for the government to give to individuals, because easy money, easy go as well. So we want people to be actually skilled and participate in the value chain, as you have mentioned quite correctly. So if you conclude on that one, and we go on to the CSI aspects. All right. Just maybe to also touch on what Edie has mentioned earlier, a topic that I'm very passionate about, the energy transition. Yeah. This decision, I personally am very happy, and even the nation is happy. Why? Because our critical raw minerals are like the COVID vaccines. Before the COVID vaccines were distributed to countries, whatever, every nation that have dealt with it, they were guarding it themselves. Why? Because our people first, before we can give to the rest of the world. And that is the same in the same context now. This energy transition will never take off until there are these input parameters. Yeah. And we are sitting on them. Before we realize it, the energy transition, energy security, energy efficiency is in other countries, but not ours. Here. Why? Because we have let all these minerals gone. The resources have gone. So it was a good way to guard it. Yeah. Since we want to establish ourselves, we want to become the energy hub. You cannot be the energy hub if you don't have the ingredients.
if you don't play along the value chain of that. So that is, it's a very, very, very important decision. And just also to bring it down to what it will mean now to the small scales, how do you call them? Yes, the small scale miners, you know. So now this gives government an opportunity to support them to build, because what they are managing is not sufficient for government to come in and build processing plants, and for them really to go into that direction. There's a comment that I wanted to make, I remember now, to make to what Meshuameni was saying. I think, I don't know if it's only in Namibia or but in Africa, we have an issue about the person being successful. We have an issue about that.
Let's go into that.
Yeah. So the reason why I'm saying this is, if you look around the world, let's look at the famous billionaire in Nigeria, Ali Dangote. How did he make his wealth? Because he had protection from government. They created a monopoly around him. And now he's the one also investing into the country. Can we not trust our own people also to create opportunities? The company that Meshuameni has mentioned, Sonils, it was protected by the government. And now it's creating employment. Now they are in Namibia partnering up with NAMCO to put up a logistic hub, because we want to learn from there. There are a lot of examples on how other jurisdictions have empowered their people. If we are in the middle of oil discoveries now we are going to produce, there's a company called Schlumberger, now they've transitioned to SLB. Those companies were empowered by their governments to be able to participate. Are we going to build a Schlumberger or a Halliburton to make sure that down after the years we are able to do it ourselves than just depending on other people? So I seriously see the problems where we don't want to empower our own people, maybe because of precedents that has been set. If you talk of the mass housing, tenderpreneurs and everything. But that just shows you about the control measures, the governance part of it, to make sure that
back to local content and laws.
To make sure that it really comes to your favor. But in conclusion, on your question about corporate social responsibilities, I think in Namibia is a mediocre. It's really a mediocre. Why am I saying this? Because certain companies do this for status, not really because they want to be seen. Not long ago, I was in the coast with Memene Tumbo when we were talking about youth unemployment. One of the issues that came out that really also touched my heart is that when people were applying for fishing quotas, they ran deep in the Vahimba. They use the sun as part of the application for you to get the application, to meet the criteria. It's just a tick box, but are those people have been used for the fishing quotas rights benefiting from it? No, they are not. So that's why we are saying social corporate responsibility, it needs to be taken seriously. I was in Tanzania at Maurel Prom, a gas production facility, where they are producing gas and they are using it to power the country. The amount of corporate social responsibility they have done in that Mtwara, they've built roads, they've built hospital, and on top of building a hospital to provide services, they've recruited the people to work in those hospitals. So that's how big it is. But our social corporate responsibility in Namibia is, like you are saying, it's about just giving bread to live today, and then tomorrow what happens. So there are no monitoring. It's not sustainable. So to ensure that there is more social community being done in the community, these private companies or do it within the community they operate, and extending further within the country. But the government now must start to monitor corporate social responsibility as how much as a specific company has done. And in conclusion, if not much of private company must be called to order, they have to be called to order if they are not succeeding. I remember when I was at Ministry of Works and Transport, we used to have an evaluation of the companies that got government tenders to build whether a school or a hospital or whatever. What have you done apart from the core mandate of building that government project? How have you impacted learners? How have you impacted students? How have you impacted that community? And we were scoring it. Based on the scoring, should the government tender comes up and we have to evaluate, high chances you might even not get it. Why? Because you are not adding any value. To it. So for me, really, monitoring of these corporate social responsibilities is very important. And it really requires collective efforts, both from the private sector and from the public sector and the government. I think I can stop there.
I think you've said a lot on the participation, on the laws, and you've said something on CSR, which is quite interesting. It leads us right into that conversation. It is very important that the state strengthens the aspects of social corporate responsibility, as you've rightly said, just to ensure, empowerment of the people, as well as that participation that we've been talking about. So, in conclusion, I'm going to ask, because we're running out of time already, 1 hour can be very short, very short. So if you, Mr. Asap, can just go into what can government do? Of course, private entities. If I fail to mention, for instance, the good examples of what Rosing has done as a mining company, and also what B2 Gold has, for instance, done. They've done good work in CSI, in investing back into communities, and we can't negate those efforts. We should probably use, excuse me? Still not enough. So I'm saying we should probably use that to build on by encouraging the rest of the mining houses to participate in the same way that B2 Gold or Rosing have done, for instance. So how can we do that as government? How can we also use, Ministry of Mines? What can they do more? What can NAMCOR do, for instance, as a mining house? What can NAMPOR do? What can these mining-like houses do more for corporate social responsibility and investing back into the community, so that these natural resources are really for the benefit of the Namibian community?
Yeah. First of all, I think it is incumbent upon companies to become more stakeholder-centric. And one of your key stakeholders is obviously the communities in which you operate. Yeah. And as an ethical, as Mrs. Shihomeni said, as an ethical and responsible corporate citizen, I don't think it should be imposed by government that you must have a corporate social responsibility policy, or like almost a whip standing behind the company. That should not be the responsibility of government. But obviously, if companies do not come and give impetus to CSR, then we'll have no choice but to either put it in policy or legislate for it. But it must be part of a company strategy that you ultimately need to look after the people from where you make your profits. And nowadays it's not just about profits anymore. It's really about people. Was it Henry Ford who said that look after your employees and your business will grow itself? Don't chase profits. And exactly the same point. Look after the community, and it's those very same communities that will protect your company's interest. That's really the bottom line. And it speaks to the ethical conduct of companies and corporations.
Yeah, and I think there is that impetus that you're talking about. It needs to be driven by something, right? And so it's not, we're saying, should we put it into policy? Is it enough that good corporate governance backhands and requires and impels companies to invest in social aspects, or in CSI? Is that enough, or should we be doing more as government? And I think many companies are catching on to it because investors are actually very interested in how are you dealing with the communities around and what are you doing about the environment. So that triple P is no longer just the focus on the profit. And we will have a session where we will discuss this. And I know we will touch on the profits and how the country can benefit, how companies can benefit, but also about the people now. I'll give you a chance and then you can weigh in. Yes.
Corporate governance cannot be achieved without inclusivity and social transformation.
I like that.
Yeah. And I think the private sector and the public sector all need to understand that without inclusivity and social transformation, we cannot achieve sustainability. And sustainability cannot be only sustainability of institution, it has to be sustainability of society. Yeah. It has to be sustainability of future generation. So therefore, after I think 33 years of being independent and looking at what we have done, we have achieved a lot, especially in terms of, there's a lot of companies that are volunteering to do corporate social responsibility. But I think the vacuum of a national policy to guide, because if you go, for example, to the European Union, you will find that there are already guidelines, for example, on sustainability and the performance indicators that measure companies. So, and I think here we would also need, for example, the support of the Namibia Stock Exchange, because those companies that are listed, that some of these indicators should be listed also for companies to able to list. Because if you really look at what we have in the country and the profit that has been made by multinational in the country, and you look at the level of poverty and the level of impact that have been made in society, yes, there are companies we need to thank, for example, Rosing Foundation, for example, and many others. For example, our own Namibia here, you know, they have one of the best social, corporate social responsibility. But I think we need a policy to guide, and we need national indicators to say, if you are coming to invest in Namibia, be in the private or public space, these are the indicators you need to meet in terms of the triple bottom line. So in terms of your responsibility toward the people, your responsibility toward the environment, and then your financial sustainability. So we need to start measuring that, because the nations around the world, they are measuring. For example, the gold mine is closed now, B2 Gold. Yeah. So what level of sustainability has been left for those people like that is going to close? So the unemployment, where the mining is, have we looked at the social impact of the people that has been impacted by the closing of that, will be impacted by the closing of that mine? The environmental impact that comes with it, we'll probably only realize it after 10 years, simply because there have not been enough national indicators and monitoring system that helps us to do that. And in many countries, the stock exchange and maybe Institute of Corporate Governance help the nations to guide the part of the private sector, while on the part of the government, we can come up with a policy and we can also apply the same instrument to public companies. And I am very much aware that our public enterprises have played a significant role in social corporate responsibility. But I think we must go beyond corporate social responsibility. Yeah. We must talk about social investment, social capital investment. Yeah. This is what we should be talking about. It's not about donating 100,000 there or building a school there. It's about how do we empower people for broad-based ownership, economic ownership of either companies. How are the companies, for example, are offering shares to employees that are there, so that you empower people, because if you empower this generation, then we will going to stop the perpetuity of poverty, because the next generation would have enough economic asset, because you will not able to reduce poverty without people acquiring economic asset. You don't reduce inequality by just donating or by just doing something. No, people need to acquire economic asset. And I think we need to legislate that. And we need to start holding each other accountable. We need to become an ethical nation that has corporate institutions that play in the corporate space that are ethically and they're ethically practicing corporate citizenship. And I think in Namibia, somehow everyone is left to do whatever you want. You can take whatever profit you want at the expense of society, or maybe even at the expense of environment.
And I think that's probably something we should discuss in depth in terms of, you've mentioned key elements already. You've mentioned the indicators. You've mentioned, the criteria when we are giving out tenders. And we've mentioned the participation of the companies from the private sector. So everything has been mentioned. It's a question of how do we make sure that we ingrain this into the actual fabric of our legislation, into the institutions, and so on, so that we are actually, that we apply it, that it's not just something that we spoke about and think and give each other ideas about, but that we actually implement it into the actual fabric of the institutionalization in terms of legislation and how we operate in the country and in the societies where we operate as companies and entities. So from the government side, there's much to do. From the private entities, there's so much to do. And I mean, we have this conversation, I'll give you a turn just now. We have this conversation all the time, even on the boards that we serve on. And you've mentioned it's not enough what some entities are doing. And I know that Steve, as our chairperson, always advocates, and he says 1% of your profits or of your revenue is not enough. And B2 Gold has done 5%. That was not enough. Can we push that up? And can we look at our own ecosystem as an entity and say, but we could do more than that 5% or the 1%. But do we measure it on the 5% only, or the percentage in terms of quantity? What is the quality impact? And that should be measurable, I think. Franz?
Meshwamin makes very good remarks indeed. My grandfather used to tell me at some point that when you are a farmer and you grow corn, it is your responsibility that if you have good corn, maize, you give it to your neighbor. Why? Because if you just grow good corn in your field and your neighbor has nothing, they will come and steal from you. 1 point.
Yeah.
The second point is, if your neighbor also try to grow corn and it's bad seed, the highly chances of that cross-pollination for that seed to corrupt yours into bed is higher than yours making the other one good. Society is the same.
Same thing, yeah.
It's the same analogy. And if you look at, when you look at the investors coming, let's say they want to participate, whether in the green hydrogen project, the one thing that they put there is, we are going to create this employment, we are going to do this. Why? Because they see that this is something that tickles the nation or the government to say like, oh, it's going to create employment. But how many of those do we go back and say, okay,
have you?
This is what you have said, you have promised. Have you fulfilled this?
Yeah.
There's nothing like that. So I agree with that. We need to put it also into law, where we measure what have you really done. Creating employment is, yes, it's the easiest way, but it should go more than just creating employment. It's the sustainability part. Yeah, sustainability part of it. For example, if I give the Hyphen project, when we evaluated for them to be considered as a preferred bidder, now during the negotiation, we have established what we call social economic zone that is specifically looking at those promises they have made. 30% youth employment, 91% Namibians, we are going to do this. How did you come up with the 30% youth? How did you come up with the 91?
Yeah.
Did you do a skills analysis gap? What informed you? We are following upon that. At what stage? What are the reporting mechanism? So these are the things that we need to do as a government, because I still work for government, as a government, not for it not to look like it's just a tick
box exercise.
It's just a tick box exercise. And I'm reminded also about what Tate Jerry Medinohamba was talking. How many of these companies really are taking in previously disadvantaged people to empower? Let's say, for example, how many companies recruit Himba or the San people to make sure that they go liberate their own people there? But in case we just put it previously disadvantaged is an advantage, but who monitors it? Nobody. So it calls up a strong message, and I'm thankful to your institution for having these conversations, because some of these things is lack of knowledge, because I just need to do. But I say the ignorance of the law is not excusable. So if you put that in the law, you'll be able to pin it on certain people. So this conversation must be able to take place, just not from the government side, but even with the private sector. So like, how do we continuously monitor this? And how do we make sure that your company continue operating? Because as a nation, we can see the impact that you are making. Not you are making a lot of profit, but versus compared to the impact you are making to the environment or to
this community.
The community is less. Do you have, for example, in the oil and gas sector, for example, we have in the law, I think, the decommissioning fund, so that should you decide that you want to run away, you cannot decommission or whatever, we have this fund that you provide that ourselves will be able to rehabilitate whatever we need to rehabilitate. Same with corporate social, we need to have a fund for it, so that if you don't do it, whichever special purpose vehicle or government will be able to do it, but at least you have invested in it.
So that point is very important, and we had a conversation today with First Rand Namibia, and Steve, also an expert on CSI, gave that example of a fund or an entity being created, and said that that's critical so that we can actually build on sustainability. And it's not a one-man show and operating in silos, but that we have collaborated and concerted efforts that can actually last into generations. Even when there's no B2 Gold anymore, we can still have the fund from which we are still investing and making a difference in the community. So I'm going to ask for final remarks, and then we will be ready to close off the show, because we did go into that 1 hour mark that we've been chasing.
Bansia, thank you so much for my closing remarks would be, I think Namibia is at a very pivotal point in our history, where we are transitioning into what we have been termed the economic emancipation of our country. Many of our forefathers have gone to liberate this country from a political point of view. Many have died. Their blood still waters our freedom until today. It is now our duty as the current generation to ensure we create a climate for economic emancipation for the generations to come. Because certainly one day when we are no more, they would be able to distinguish and say, these are the ones that fought for our country for liberation. These are the ones that set the atmosphere for economic emancipation. And that is why we can benefit. And we will leave that legacy so that our future generations inherit a country that is governed properly, inherit a country where our natural resources speak to the needs, the contemporary needs of those generations to come. Thank you.
That is, I couldn't add to that. I couldn't add to that. That's good. Mshihomeni, anything you want to add?
No, I think we are at the strategic time of our life, and especially for these generations, to really change the trajectory of the Namibian people. And I think this is the right time now. with maybe we were taking our time, but now I think the green hydrogen and oil discovery has waken us up. I think let us use this opportunity to correct what we might not have been doing very well, and that is actually ensuring the broad-based participation of the Namibian people. And we are not talking about spoon feeding. We are talking about encouraging entrepreneurship, corporate entrepreneurs in Namibia. There are a lot of bright young Namibians and also serious business people. But we are talking about there has been a deliberate effort. There must be a deliberate effort from both the government and also the key partners, economic partners, to see how can we broaden the economic participation of Namibia. And Namibia should not give any excuse to anybody for empowering its own people, for ensuring that its own people participate in their own natural resources. So, and I think I want to encourage you that we continue to create, because I said what has been talked over and over become the truth. So let's continue this dialogue between all sectors of society, and let's take it to social media, let's make it to TV and radio, and let's get an opportunity to say, how do we beneficate the natural resources to the Namibian people, and what is the best strategies that are there that we can use? And I am counting on the Institute of Corporate Governance to carry us through that national dialogue.
Yes, tall order. Francis, final remark?
Yes. Mine really again is to thank you for this type of platform, because this conversation, it's a paradigm shift. Why I say that is, as much as we've highlighted what are the root causes and what needs to be done, one of the key elements is ourselves, the nation or the people. Can we see what is about to happen to our country? Are we ready? Can we trust each other? Can private sector trust government? Can government trust private sector? We need to have a paradigm shift to say, it's not Ome anymore, but let me rise to occasion to change the future of Namibia. And personally, as the youth I'm seeing, people are rising out to the occasion. And the truth is, we have brothers or sisters countries that discovering oil is not new. Even green hydrogen is not new. Other people have done it. But that gives us an opportunity to see what is it that we want to become that other countries were not. It's very important. So this discussion, this conversation needs to take place, and it can also not take place in isolation. It needs to be inclusive, so that you balance across everywhere. And you hear the views of those ones that are really in distress, the poverty is real. But my last comment is to say that, yes, we actually know what we need to do, but we still continue talking, then implementing or doing the things. So corporate governance requires thought leadership, and leadership is taking decisions. At least, even if you have made that decision, it was a wrong one, but you have made a decision, at least, rather than fearing to take a decision. And timely decision. Is it Desmond Tutu that said that when you keep quiet in the situation of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. So there are a lot of people that are oppressed, and we can't continue keeping quiet. We need to make decisions so that our people, the youth, our children feel like, yes, this is the Namibia, this is the prosperous Namibia that has been engraved in the Vision 2030, in the Harambee Prosperity Plan, or any other plans that may come. So, but otherwise, thank you very much for having us. And you have been given a tall order by Meshwameni to make sure that this, but thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much also for giving us your valuable time and speaking to us on this very, very important topic. I can't dilute what you have said by adding to what you have said, but I would like to emphasize that we have mentioned so many critical issues and critical resolutions that were, spoken around this fire today, that we should continue this conversation, but we should also implement. So we should hasten to accelerate the amendment of laws. That's what we should do. We should hasten to implement the local content policy, but a very good one. And we're going to consult different regions, and we ask that the nation be involved and have a voice in the content of that policy, so that tomorrow we can all hold each other accountable for putting into place or in place these policies. So there's a lot to be done, but some things are starting to be done, and it's important that we continue with that trajectory. And I wanted to say thank you. Thank you again for giving us your time. And thank you, viewers, for tuning in and all the comments that you've given us, beautiful comments and questions alike that we have shared around this fire. We are looking forward to hosting you again around the fire next week, Thursday, 6 p.m. on the Namibia Institute of Corporate Governance Facebook page and the Namibia newspaper Facebook pages. Join us with another conversation on the governance of natural resources, and we're looking forward to talk about the economy, or rather the profit, and also the planet, which is the environment. Looking forward to another session in the future, and thank you once again. Please keep warm, and thank you.
Thank you so much.